Welcome to the Just a Sec Conversation. Jared Sandler here with you. Excited to share with you episode 55 of this series with longtime DFW sports reporter, journalist Mike Fisher. I think everyone likes a good story, and Mike Fisher certainly has plenty of those with his time covering the Dallas Cowboys, the Mavericks, and more. And I'm thankful that Fish took time to share some of those stories with me and I guess in turn with you. Just a reminder, would really appreciate if you would consider subscribing, liking, commenting, or just sharing the link, all of it. It takes you maybe a second, but it really does make a difference, and it goes a long way. And would really, really appreciate your cooperation and your partnership in doing so. But alas, here we go, episode 55 of the Just a Sec Conversation with Mike Fisher. All right, Fish, I always like to ask this question. Take it in any direction you'd like. What was your childhood like? What were your interests, your influences? When you think back to that time in your life, what stands out?
Well, my grandparents, my mom's parents, and then my mom. I'm trying to say this. My mom, by the way, passed away last February. I wish she could be here to hear me say this so she could laugh, but I've told it to her. She thought I was a god. She thought I was a golden god, and I was the oldest of 6 kids, and she had me when she was whatever. They got married at 19, and she had me right away, and bang, 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 bang. Had 6 kids. They had like 6 kids in 5 years, it seems like. But she told me all the time how I could accomplish anything, and she meant it. And it instilled in me this idea that, I really could be a lawyer. I could be a doctor. I could be president. I could be an actor. I could be anything. And she exaggerated greatly. I mean, she made us all 6 of us, think we're way good looking, way better looking than we actually are. Because she put that in us. And her parents did that to me too. Her parents would pull me out of school in 3rd grade and say, we lived in Minnesota, say, we're going to Florida. And they'd leave the other 6 kids behind. Screw them. The special boy gets to go to Florida in the middle of the school year. So they really taught me, and maybe this is why some people view me as arrogant today, and maybe I am, but they really taught me what I could achieve if I really wanted to, and that could be anything and everything. And I must say, Jared, and my 2 sons who are now in their 27 and 30, and I've tried to do that for them. I've tried to tell them, like when they were little babies, I would sing to them this song, this nursery rhyme song that I made up called Handsome, Smart, and Nice. And I would rock them to sleep by telling these little babies that they're handsome and they're smart and they're nice. And I believe that in parenting, because my mom did it to me. I believe that it gives them confidence, maybe too much confidence, but it instills in them this base that they don't have to be scared. They don't have to feel unloved. They don't have to worry, because if they work hard enough, they'll be good enough, and I believe in that.
Fish, what was your I guess introduction to sports, or maybe what interested you about sports, and when about was that?
Well, my dad was and still is this outstanding athlete. He's 81 now. And now he cheats at golf, but he's outstanding at golf. And the family legend has it. He also, by the way, we had 7 children. The youngest died in childbirth. He is one of 7 children. Also all boys except for 1 girl. And family legend has it in North St. Paul, Minnesota, that he was a 9-time high school letterman. That he lettered in football, track, basketball, and then tried baseball one year just for the hell of it and lettered in that too. So that he was my introduction to it, except for one problem. I lettered in no sports. Gosh, I sucked. And I wanted so bad not to suck, probably to please my dad. That probably doesn't make me unique. And we moved to Greeley, Colorado when I was 13, and he started a slow pitch softball team. And over the course of a couple of years, he became really good. I mean, I know you're a big college baseball player, so you might laugh, but it was very competitive, high level, slow pitch softball. And I got to be like fake on the team when I was 13 and a mascot and stuff. Now keep in mind, I'm 13. I'm 6'1", 195 pounds. So nobody knows I'm 13, and nobody knows I can't play. I mean, I look like I could do something, but over the course of a few years, I worked really hard so I could be like adequate, so I could fit in a little bit, and eventually did. And so that was probably it. Trying to be like my dad, trying to live up to what my dad could do. By the way, all my brothers are all like half my size and 10 times my skill. They were all quarterbacks and shortstops and point guards and all the time, every damn one of them. And then there was me, and I sucked. So I had everybody that was littler than me and my dad, they were all better than I was. So trying to compete and stay alive, that was probably part of it. And then, of course, the other thing my dad did for me, Jared, is inadvertently, like, you should meet my dad. Like, he will listen to this. He's an a-hole. I mean, he's got, like, you probably think I have a bit of an edge to me, right? And so do you, by the way. A little, assertive, aggressive. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. My dad would, like, hit a double down the left field line, and then as he was turning around first base, would elbow the first baseman in the head just for the fun of it, just because he could. And I watched it, and I kind of, it was so cheap and dirty and rotten and terrible and competitive and awesome and enviable. And he's still like that. Why would an 80-year-old man cheat at golf? Why? But that's my dad. And so I have, that assertive, aggressive, a little bit, maybe too much on the edge. I get that from him.
All right, Fish. So you come to DFW in 1990. You've been here now 3 decades, right?
Yeah.
What from high school Fish to DFW Fish? What led you to the DFW market?
Okay, so you can't tell. By the way, I don't know if anybody's interested in the story of Fish, but if you want to try to tell the story of Fish, you have to include the fact that I skipped 2 grades. And my beloved mother really wrestled with it, and she went to all the authorities she could find. What does it do for him? What does it do to his psyche? What does it do to his social? So by the time I was a sophomore in high school, I was 13. So I was a 13-year-old sophomore in high school. And again, luckily for me, I didn't get, and I was a brainiac. And again, because I looked like a senior, I looked like I was 17. So I didn't get picked on and stuff. I didn't get bullied and stuff because I fit in that way. But that was certainly formative for me. I guess precocious might be the word. So I'm a 13-year-old sophomore. I'm a 15-year-old high school senior. I started college at 15, 16, whatever. And, my plan, again, my mom telling me, yeah, of course you can do it. I wanted to be either Johnny Carson and host a talk show, or a cartoonist and get published, or a sports writer for Sports Illustrated. And as I've told you before, Jared, again, not exactly in all those ways, but I'm doing all 3 of them. I didn't just realize one dream that my mom told me I could have. I realized all 3 of them. And coming to DFW is part of that. I'd gotten really lucky when in 1980, I think, when my hometown, my adopted hometown, my second hometown of Greeley, Colorado, the Denver Broncos decided to come to University of Northern Colorado and train there. And I just gotten a job, like part-time or something, at the Greeley Tribune. By the way, I was on radio. I had a radio job and a newspaper job at the same time, just like I kind of do now. And we had 5 people on the staff, and the editor says, the Broncos are coming to town. Who wants to cover them? Well, these other guys, they didn't. That's just extra work for them, all these older established guys. I'm like, you guys are nuts. I'll take the Broncos. Well, next thing you know, I guess this was 85. I don't know, whatever. Next thing you know, they go to 2 Super Bowls in a row with John. It was the John Elway Broncos, so it was 84, I think. Well, So I went to 2 Super Bowls for the Greeley Tribune. And that got me exposure. That got me a job in Marin County covering the 49ers. And then they went to 2 Super Bowls, 88, 89. And that got me exposure in no small part to Ed Werder, who put in a good word for me, who was already here and also from University of Northern Colorado. And I got the job at the Star-Telegram here. And then the Cowboys, 2 years later, went to their Super Bowls. I started thinking, Jared, it was me. I started thinking I was like this lucky rabbit's foot, that everywhere I went, Super Bowls followed. I've, in the last 25 years, realized that isn't true.
All right, so I want to go back to this college thing. So
yeah.
What was it? Fish, I don't know at 18 if I was like really ready for college from a maturity standpoint. I certainly wasn't at 16. What was that experience like for you? What were some of the challenges, and how did you maybe deal with those challenges? And aside, was there ever any challenge from an acceptance standpoint just because you were so much younger?
It was the first time I was ever scared in school because I went into the first freshman class and like there was other students in there with beards and sports coats. I'm like, what the hell? I mean, I was in there in, probably wearing gym shorts, same way I do now. So that was intimidating. There's no doubt. I definitely think, like socially, my social was my adult friends on the softball team. And I was, 15 or whatever, and they were all 25, and they were all my big brothers. And they were all so cool. And a couple of them had played pro baseball. Tom Gash and Ken Knight had played like AA pro baseball. So, they were studs. And they were my 10-year older brothers. So I didn't have a college social life. I didn't drink till I was 18. I still have never smoked pot. I think back now and think I was way too much of a dork to be much of a dater. But I guess I went out on dates, but I certainly didn't feel like I was cool or capable in that department at all. And so, yeah, college was a little intimidating in that way. Like fraternity, I never even thought of it. I did ask my mom years later, why did I go to UNC? I go, why didn't I go to, University of Colorado? Or, since you think I'm so great, why didn't I go to Harvard? She goes, well, Mike, you didn't get your driver's license till you were 18, so who was going to drive you to Harvard? And that's a good point. My mom, I'm 16, 17 years old, and my mom's still driving me around. Swear to you. So, yeah, if you think I'm a dork and a nerd and all that stuff, even to this day, you are not wrong.
All right, so moving back to Fish coming to Dallas, looking from where we are now, you are, deeply embedded with both the Mavericks and the Cowboys, and you've got, on the Cowboys side, a really strong relationship with the Jones family. How did that relationship with Jerry start?
Well, I'm embedded and I'm indebted. I'm just, it's so lucky. I don't know, had I gotten a job in, I almost took a job in Alaska, in Anchorage, when I left Greeley. That was the best job I was being offered when I left Colorado. And I was, I'd probably still be there because once you go there, you can't get out. And then when I was in San Francisco, I got a job offer to go to Hawaii. And same thing. You want, this is 1989 or whatever. Once you take a job in Hawaii, the Atlanta paper can't even afford to fly you all the way for an interview. So you're stuck there. So getting to come here and all the blessings that have happened since, very fortunate. The Jerry thing and the Jones family thing, this is true. So I rolled into town in spring of 1990, and it was a dead period. So I guess it was whatever after the draft and whatever, and especially back then, pre-Jerry Jones changing things. The NFL actually had an off season. Jerry changed that, and so nobody really gave me any instructions at the Star-Telegram. They just said, "Okay, you're hired. Here's your paycheck, and go." So I drove to Valley Ranch and sat in the parking lot, and again, pretty scared, and didn't know. I didn't know what door to go in. I didn't have a contact with anybody. Trying to think did we have cell phones in 1990? I don't know. Barely.
I was barely alive.
Yeah, I know. And so in my memory, I sat there. I went for 3 days and sat in the parking lot. and twiddled my thumb. And on day number 3, out comes the first person that went in or out the door that I saw. Out the door comes this figure walking towards me. No, what have I done? They discovered me. They're going to discover that I don't even be here. They're going to ship me back home. And it's Jerry Jones, and he raps on my window, and I roll it down, and I recognize it's Jerry Jones. He goes, "What are you doing out here?" Which was scary. And I introduced myself and says, "Well, Mr. Mack, why don't you come on inside for a nice glass of iced tea?" And so I did. And I followed him inside to his office and met Marilyn Love, who to this day is still a dear friend of mine, his right-hand woman, his girl Friday. And I sat in Jerry's office all day. I mean, from 9 to 5. Just sat there and watched him work and talked to him and stuff. And this is the origin of deadlines make deals, which we've all heard now, right?
Absolutely.
You've heard him say that. I mean, it's in the vernacular now. We all say it, like as if Shakespeare wrote it, but Jerry wrote it. And to my knowledge, here's how it came about. So I'm sitting in his office and the phone rings, and Marilyn says, "Jerry, it's Isaac Holt's agent on the line." I think it was Isaac Holt, number 30, cornerback. And so Jerry's a G and a hawing, as he does on the phone. And I'm sitting there listening on speakerphone. He puts it on speakerphone. I get to hear the whole thing. I'm listening to contract negotiations on my first hour of meeting Jerry Jones. And it sounds to me like they're really close. I mean, it sounds to me like they got it down, we're going to pay you $300,000. And then, okay, very good. Sounds good. And then Jerry hangs up. I go, "Mr. Jones, excuse me. I don't know from Shinola around here, but it sounds like you pretty much have the deal done." He's, "Yeah, pretty much." I go, "Why didn't you just do it?" He goes, "Mr. Mack, deadlines make deals." And I thought it was genius, and I've written it on purpose a billion times since, because it's so Jerry. It's the reason that it takes so long to do everything around there contractually, because there's no reason to do it today. Let's do it when we have to do it. And obviously that's a Jerry Jones credo that, might be the name of his autobiography as far as I'm concerned. At least if I get to write it, ghostwrite it.
Hey, I'm curious, one of the things that I think is great about Jerry, and you see it even on his own team's website, he's not afraid of negativity. He, I think as long as he feels like it's fair or done in an ethical or morally acceptable way, he's okay with you going on air or, writing, "Hey, Jerry screwed this up," or "What the heck was Jerry Jones thinking?" And not many people, certainly in his role, are like that. But, I imagine there are times people have crossed lines. Have you ever had an incident with Jerry where you had to smooth things over? Or, did you ever spend a period of time, in his doghouse for something? And how did you go about that? Because obviously if you're in the doghouse of the right guard who's a free agent the next year, whatever, not a big deal. That you're going to you're going to be there longer than that guy. But I imagine the owner of the Cowboys and someone as influential as Jerry is someone with whom you'd probably prefer to avoid the doghouse.
Yeah, what's unique about Jerry, and by the way, Mark Cuban's got a lot of this in him too, is he recognizes that our jobs, your job, my job, is not to be his mouthpiece. And so it's laughable when whether it's people on the fan or whatever get accused of being that. He doesn't demand that. He doesn't even politely ask it. He really does believe, as long as you're talking about us, first of all, then that's good. But he has, in some moments, he has admitted to me that he gets his feelings hurt, which people don't think of. That he calls them gut cuts. He goes, "Boy, they gave me a gut cut on that one." And a lot of that was the early years, before people knew him, and they were painting him as this villain. And he's just not a villainous person, as we now know. You don't have to like him, but he's not a villainous person. I think even his detractors get that now. But remember the old? Mine was Bozo the Clown. But did you ever have one of those blow up, like life-size clowns or whatever, with sand in the bottom, and you punch it in the face and it pops back up? You know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly what you're talking. I didn't have one, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay, so it was Bozo the Clown when I was little, and I used to say Jerry is is the bozo, the clown with the sand in his butt. You punch him right in the nose, and he bounces right back with a smile on his face. He likes the interaction. You know, Dale Hansen, Dale's a grand friend of mine, but Dale Hansen has crossed some lines. And yet, if Dale called Jerry right now and said, let's go meet for a beer, they might have to do it 6 feet apart. But Jerry'd go. And I admire that of him. I admire that. Listen, Jerry, you're the one that basically put your name on the restaurant, right? It's Jerry Jones's Dallas Cowboys restaurant. So the fact that you take the abuse when somebody doesn't like the service at the restaurant, good for you. It was once that I got in big trouble. I mean, a million times little trouble, but once in big trouble. The Emmitt Smith contract negotiations, 1990, leading up to 1993 season. And Emmitt told me, and I wrote in the paper, big headlines, I want quarterback money. And that seemed outrageous at the time. I guess it's outrageous again now. So they had their contract dispute. Well, the agent for Jerry wasn't talking to the agent, and the agent wouldn't talk to Jerry. But the agent knew that I talked to Jerry. So the agent, who denies it to this day, calls me and says, well, what if I give you information and then Jerry can get it from you? I said, listen, as long as you let me put it in the paper, I don't care. I'm putting it in the paper anyway. Jerry's going to read it anyway. So sure. So back and forth we went all summer. Well, when Jerry realized what I was doing, he called me on the phone that he had installed in our cubicle back there at my request. Before there was they were offices. Before they were just semi-cubicles, and we could all hear each other on the phone. Me and Werder and Collishaw and Richie Witt, and we could all hear each other. And I said, Jerry, this is stupid. So he built us little offices with our own phones, in-house phones. And he called me on the in-house phone, and he accused me of what I had been doing. I said, yeah, it's true. I don't feel I did anything wrong. He says, boy, you're wrong there, Mr. Mike. You painted your ass into a corner now you ain't never going to get out of. And he wasn't laughing. And so I thought that I had painted my ass into a Jerry Jones corner that he was going to never let me out of. It didn't last very long, but yes, it just like with you, Jared, when the manager, like a Rangers manager, says, somebody go get me Sandler, I need to talk to him. It's like going to the principal, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether you're right or you're wrong or whatever. It's, straighten up and walk right and go into the principal's office and get yelled at. And so, yeah, I've had a couple principal's office sessions with Jerry Jones, and even worse ones with Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban's fired me about 15 times in the 25 years we've known each other, and I'm like, I don't work for you. You can't fire me. But he gets pretty wound up. But again, Cuban's great too at understanding. Hey, we have to do our job, and as long as it's not personal, then it shouldn't be taken personal.
All right, so I want to get back to the Cowboys, but let's go to the Mavericks now. And your relationship with Mark Cuban is certainly something I want to get into, but he wasn't in his current role when you first came into the Metroplex. So how did you develop that pipeline with the Mavericks that you have that allows you to cover that team in the way you do here now?
Well, and again, this is just great good fortune. We all, if we've had any level of success in any business, we all sometimes make the mistake of thinking, well, I'm a self-made man. I did this. Nobody helped me. Boy, I wasn't born with nothing. And the fact is that we're all standing on the shoulders of somebody that helped us. All of us. Jared, you've got many mentors who have led you here. Now, would you have gotten here without them? Maybe. But I bet you wouldn't want to take that risk. Let's just do it the way we did it with the many mentors and role models and stuff. And so, my relationship with Mark Cuban is all about good luck. I had my show on 570 Cliff, starting in 1995. And it was great, man. I mean, it was good in all three of those areas, I must say. In ratings, it was really good. In reviews, in terms of what the public's opinion of it was really good, and revenue were really good. But one of the coolest things that's happened was that it was about that time that there was some guy who would come in every once in a while to the radio station. He lived downtown, and he'd come into our downtown radio station, and he'd go back in the back, and he was back there playing with wires and stuff, and audio equipment, and and trying to put things together and press buttons. And I went back there and said, "What are you doing?" And he said, I'm trying to figure out a way to listen to University of Indiana basketball while I'm in Dallas." And it was Mark Cuban. And of course now that seems like rudimentary internet, right? Well, of course you can press a button and listen to basketball. But back then, Jared, you're going to ask your great-grandfather about this. Back then, you'd have to listen to it on the radio, and you'd have to get up on a hill in your town, and maybe you could hear maybe somehow you could hear a Kansas City Royals game or a St. Louis Cardinals game or a Chicago Cubs game if you were in Minneapolis or something. So Cuban, obviously, as we all know now, helped create the concept of being able to listen to audio on the computer. And that's how I met Mark Cuban. We hung out at the Super Bowl, I think, in Tampa a couple of years after that. And then 5 years later, he bought your Dallas Mavericks.
All right. So, Fish, competition is prevalent in any industry, no matter what you do. I know that obviously the writing landscape has changed drastically from what it was when you started to what it is now, with the internet first and then what the internet has allowed. I think there are way more people who have a platform now, and now the idea of being able to break a story and all that stuff is, it's huge. But I also know that before that, there was still that cutthroat approach to, producing the best story and having the paper, the outlet that's got the best content. How have you approached the competition, whether it's with fellow local journalists or even journalists, broadcasters on a national stage?
Well, back in the, now we're talking about early 90s again. So the newspapers and the Dallas Morning News was the big dog, and they earned it. And what a great paper that is. And I worked for the Star Telegram. I worked for the quote, other paper. And so the way it worked is you'd write your story and you'd think you'd have breaking news, but the breaking news would have to wait till it hit the doorstep the next morning at 5 a.m. And so, yes, every morning at 5 a.m., I'd wake up and walk to the Albertsons down the street and look at the Star Telegram and look at the Dallas Morning News. Sometimes I even bought them, but sometimes I just looked inside of them and to see if my competition, who at that time, incredibly, was the very talented Ed Werder and the very talented Tim Collishaw, both double teaming against little old me. And again, both good guys, and they were great at their jobs. And man, oh man, if you won, if you had Troy Aikman saying something big or Jerry Jones one-on-one or whatever it was, Michael Irvin, whatever it was, and they didn't, yes, I mean, you threw a parade for yourself every day until the next morning at 5 a.m. when you had to do it all again. That's changed now. I mean, Twitter has made it so there's no 5 a.m. It's you don't wait 5 hours, you wait 5 seconds. And there's good and bad to it, of course. It's made people want to have opinions before they have facts, which is kind of my pet peeve. My son Tony will sometimes over the years, especially when he was younger, we'll get in a debate and he'll say, "Well, Dad, the sky is red." I know, Tony, the sky's blue. "Well, Dad, that's my opinion, and I'm entitled to it." "Well, son, you're not entitled to your opinion if it's ridiculous," is what I've told him. I told him way too many times. And so I say that to us, that we are not entitled to our opinion, not unless we have our facts in order and we have experience backing it up and we've lived it. And so Twitter's not very good at that, unfortunately. Everybody wants to be a columnist. And of course, in my view and in my day, you had to be a beat writer first. Then you became a columnist after years of toiling as an opinion-free beat writer. And all those things have changed, some for the better. I really enjoy the competition even now. I think I don't enjoy it when people get their feelings hurt and take it personally. I certainly don't intend on hurting anybody's feelings. And I guess I know, again, it might be my style, and maybe I need to shave it down a little bit. But like at 105.3 The Fan, I recognize what the other radio stations do. I mean, I've been here 30 years. I get it. I get the greatness of that station and the magnificence of that station, but I'm very proud when 105.3 The Fan does something well, and you know, and I like to show that I'm proud of it. And maybe if that comes across wrong, then I sure don't mean it to. I mean it as support for what our guys do. I don't mean it to denigrate what somebody else does.
All right, last thing, Fish. End on a high note. Give you a ton of freedom here. You have a treasure trove of awesome stories. Your time here in the DFW Metroplex with a sports landscape. Is there one that stands out as like your favorite story, whether it involves you or it doesn't involve you, that you love sharing or you're comfortable sharing on this platform?
I should have thought of that. I should have thought that you were going to ask me that. Maybe we need to edit this and let me think about it for a minute.
All right, how about a Dirk story? We haven't really talked about Dirk. Maybe that can get you going down the right path.
You know, we can spend. I mean, I've got a lot of Michael Irvin's. A lot of Michael Irvin. In fact, can I tell you two?
I think that's permissible. Yes.
Okay. We're not on it. We don't have to go to commercial or anything.
No commercial.
Okay. So after Michael Irvin is retired, and I'm out of radio at this point. I'm running DallasBasketball.com. This must, I don't know, 2001 or something. Michael Irvin gets a call from Fox Sports saying, Michael, we want to hire you to do a national radio show. So get your own co-host, come to Los Angeles. Let's do a tryout. Let's go. So Michael Irvin calls me, you know, and again, I don't think my relationship with him is much of a secret. He's been a career maker for me, been incredible, to this day. And he calls me and says, I wish I could do an invitation. He goes, Fish, we're going to Hollywood. And so he explained to me, you know, that they're going to come pick me up and we're going to go and we're going to stay at some, and we did. We stayed at some famous hotel that you'd recognize its profile in Los Angeles, and away we went. So we get to the airport in L.A., and here's like a limousine-esque sort of car to pick us up. And Irvin sits in the front, and then Bonnie. Do you know Bonnie Jill?
Yeah.
You know Bonnie Jill?
Yep.
What's her last name? Laughlin?
Yep.
Okay. So Bonnie Jill, former Cowboy cheerleader, an L.A. Woman about town, a scout with the Lakers. Like, I get in the back seat, and he gets in the front seat, and I look up, and I'm like, we have this a pretty lady. She's our limousine driver. Well, no, it's Bonnie Jill. So off we go. So he's in the front seat. He's talking to Bishop T.D. Jakes on the phone and praying with him. And Bonnie's driving, and I'm in the back seat going, what have I gotten myself into? We're swerving and whirving all the time. He says, I'm hungry. Let's go get something to eat. So we go to the Brown Derby, famous old Brown Derby, right? You know, you ever heard of it?
Yeah.
Okay. And there's no parking spot. He goes, you know, Bonnie, just park right here, which means in the middle of the street. We're in the middle of whatever, busy LA street. He goes in, and we're thinking, what are you doing? You getting takeout in styrofoam? What are you doing? He goes in the back door because there was a line to get in the Brown Derby. Irvin goes in the back door, and he comes about 5 minutes later with this gigantic, the biggest bowl you ever saw. Not a table bowl. This is a kitchen. He went into the kitchen and took a bowl of spaghetti that the chefs were preparing for the evening to serve to 100 guests. This gigantic bowl and all it had in it was a wooden stirring spoon. And so that's what we ate, out of a bowl that was as big as a car, sitting in the front seat with one big wooden spoon that he just stole from the Brown Derby. Started walking into the kitchen and taking it. So we do our tryout, and I was in charge of booking our guests, so it will come as no surprise to you, given what we discussed in this show. I think we did an hour show as a tryout, and our guests were Mark Cuban and Jerry Jones, of course, because I wanted to get the biggest guests we could, so we're going to get this show. And, you know, I thought it was great. He thought it was great. And the Fox people thought it was great. So we wake up the next morning. We fly back. We're getting ready. I'm like, Michael, are we moving to L.A.? What are we doing? What about my kids? What's the deal? And he gets a call, and he says, then he calls me. He says, I got some bad news for us, Fish. I go, what? He goes, we didn't get the job. We finished second. I go, what do you mean? Who finished first? He goes, the guy who finished first wasn't even in the race until this morning. That morning, the great Dan Patrick had left whatever he was doing to go become a syndicated radio host. And Dan Patrick took our job. We were in the clear. We were leaning into the finish line. And then Dan Patrick, out of nowhere, elbowed us out of the way and announced that he was available. And so he got the job. So there went the Michael Irvin national radio show, and it worked out just fine. My Dirk story, it won't surprise you when you hear the end of it. So I'm sitting at home. This is, of course, in the internet age. So this is Twitter, and this is fast, and get it out there. And you know how it works, Jared. You kind of, this is like old newspaper man thing, but it's true. It's good to know the guys who run restaurants, right? It's good to know the maitre d's. It's good to know the bartenders. Every once in a while, a bartender might call you and say, hey, you better get down here. Michael Irvin's here, right? So I get a phone call saying, I think the place is called The Porch. Does that sound right?
Yeah. Knox.
Okay. Yep, that's it. So I get a phone call from whoever at The Porch that worked there, and they said, hey, Dirk Nowitzki's down here. And, he's having a dinner with some friends, but they're having a big old time. And I just thought I'd tell you, whatever, Well, I tweeted it. I tweeted, Dirk having some fun tonight at The Porch with the fellas. He sure deserves it. Something like that. So the next day I go to Mavericks practice. And Sarah Melton, the great PR director, comes to me and she goes, Dirk needs to speak to you. And this is a principal's office situation. What do you mean why didn't he just come up to me? What do you mean he needs to speak to me? So I go up to Dirk. And he goes, Fish, of course. He says, of course, every other sentence, as you know. Of course, I recognize you have a job to do, he says. And he's like patting me on the head. Okay, and he's 28 and I'm 58 or whatever it was at the time. And he's patting me on the head, like he's feeling sorry for me. He goes, what you don't understand is after you tweeted that, somebody else did, and somebody else did. There became a line of autograph seekers, 300 people long. He goes, I wish there was a way to just kind of leave my private life private. And I mean, he's about making me cry because I'm not wrong, but he's right. And then he got done patting me on the head, and he said, so, you do what you got to do, but I wish you would have done that. And then he pats me on the chest, and he patted me on the chest really, really hard. So his words were saying, hey, I understand, of course, you've got a job to do. And his hand was saying, don't ever do that again, Mike Fisher.
Well, there you go. Just a Sec conversation, episode 55. Really appreciate Mike Fisher taking the time to share some of those stories, and hopefully you enjoyed them as well. Again, would really appreciate if you would comment, like, subscribe, or just take this link, send it to one person, just one person who you think might enjoy this. All that really goes a long way. Would really, really appreciate it if you would consider doing that. Until next time, stay safe, be healthy. We'll talk to you later.